Good afternoon and welcome to the Committee of Adjustment hearings for Suburban Panel 2. We are a City of Ottawa quasi-judicial tribunal that holds public hearings to consider Planning Act applications, including minor variances to the zoning requirements and consents to sever land. Our hearings are now in person at Ben Franklin Place, 101 Centrepoint Drive. We also enable remote participation by video conferencing for our registered speakers. We are live streaming on YouTube, and the video will be archived and available for future viewing by the public. My name is Fabien Poulin. I'll be chairing today's hearings, and you can address me by name or as chair. And with me are my fellow panel members, Jay Baltz, George Barrett, Heather McLean, and Julianne Wright. All right. Okay, thanks. The procedure for the hearings will be as follows. Listed on the agenda and appearing on the screen from time to time are the applications we'll hear today. For the sake of efficiency, I may deal with agenda items in a different order. Panel members have reviewed the planning reports and any submissions written or in opposition or in support of each of the applications. Today, we'll hear oral submissions relating to the applications. As part of the statutory notification requirements, each applicant was required to post a sign on the property in question before the hearing. They also had to confirm in writing that they did so, or they'll need to swear or affirm an oath today that they're fulfilled the sign posting requirements. Otherwise, we may have to adjourn or postpone the hearing. The panel may ask for a brief presentation of an application, followed by questions for the applicant and city planning staff. We'll then hear from members of the public who have registered to speak, and we may also have questions for them. Finally, the applicant, who has the burden of proof, will have an opportunity to make the final comments and reply. Please address your comments to me as the chair, starting with your name and spelling it if necessary, and your municipal address for the record. All presentations are limited to 5 minutes. Any exceptions will be at my discretion. At the end of the hearing, the panel may either make an oral decision or may reserve our decision, which means it won't be delivered today. In either case, within 10 days, the Committee of Adjustment will send the official written decision and decisions for it to all parties, participants, and anyone else who has requested a copy. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure we'll be following today? No questions? Thank you. We have several applications to hear today, but we first need to deal with some preliminary procedural matters. Are there any declarations of interest for this panel or any of the other panels? There are no declarations of interest. No minutes to confirm, no adjournment requests. And now we'll just move on to the hearing of the applications. We'll first deal with the unopposed applications. Today we have we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 unopposed applications, and they qualify as unopposed because there is no objections or concerns from the parties, the applicant, the city, or the public. There are no amendments required. There are no registered speakers. The sign posting declaration has been received. Applicant or their agent has confirmed that they agree with all requested conditions, if any, and no questions from panelists. So first of all, we'll be dealing with 141 Rothesay Avenue. All those, I ask the panel if they're in favor of pushing this application on as unopposed. All those in favor, please raise your hands. Application for 141 Rothesay Drive has been approved. Moving on to application 2, 1356 Louis Lane. All those in favor of approval of this application, please raise your hands. Application for 1356 Louis Lane has been approved. Next application is 1359 Gosset Street. All those in favor of approving this application, please raise your hands. This application for 1359 Gosset Street has been approved. Moving on to application for 556 Mansfield Avenue. All those in favor of approving this application, raise your hands. That application is approved for 556 Mansfield Avenue. Next on the list is 383 Longworth Avenue. All those in favor of approving this application, please raise your hands. Application for 383 Longworth Avenue has been approved. And now the last application unopposed is 13150 Rossignol Avenue. All those in favor of approving this application, please raise your hands. That application for 130 to 150 Rossignol Drive has been approved as well. Now we'll move on to the applications in order, beginning with 630 Montreal Road. N. DeSanti, are you available?
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the panel. My name is Nadia DeSanti. I'm a practice lead with WSP Canada, Inc. On the virtual part of our meeting, my client, Mr. Salim Mahi Baudry, is on, as well as the project architect, Yves Lessier. So if there are any questions, they are able to participate as well.
Thank you. I just want to let you know, Ms. DeSanti, we did receive a request for simultaneous translation of this hearing today. We only received it at 2:30 in the afternoon on Friday. We're unable to get it done because
That's okay.
that's okay.
Yeah, thank you. I hadn't requested that before and I didn't realize the time constraint or advance notification. So no problem. My
Okay, it's
client
got to be
able
at
to-
least 72 hours.
Yes, thank you. I'll know for
Okay.
next time.
Thank you very much. If you'd like to proceed and give us a brief description of your application today.
Sure. If I could have the presentation online, please. While that is online, there's some feedback. Is that okay? Maybe I'll just speak further back. I would like to start off, Mr. Chair, to indicate that this site did come before the Committee of Adjustment a couple of years ago, and it was adjourned, signed. It's okay, thanks. I'm sorry, my microphone came off. And we've also been working with city staff on a site plan application that's been ongoing concurrently. We're at the tail end of that approval. There's just a phase 2 ESA report being conducted and this process before we can resubmit on the site plan with that additional report and hopefully get city approval. So next slide, please. So 630 Montreal Road is an irregular shaped lot. It's a corner lot that fronts on Montreal Road, and the side street is Borthwick Avenue. It is approximately 0.103 hectares in size. It contains or currently has a one-story building and a one-story detached garage sitting on the site. They're vacant. To the north of the site is a 14-story high-rise building, as well as some parks and commercial and retail, as well as some low-rise residential to the east and to the south. Next slide, please. The proposed development is for a 9-story mid-rise mixed-use building with commercial at grade and containing 56 dwelling units. Our client has indicated that they are looking for 15 to 25% of those units to be affordable housing. They've had conversations with CMHC and continue to do so. So that is the intent, that it would be rent geared to income units for this property. And it would contain a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units. The commercial space on the ground floor is about 206.5 square meters. And the residential units would be located from the 2nd to the 9th story. The proposal is for an underground parking garage containing 33 parking spaces, 29 for the residents and 4 for visitors, as well as 39 bicycle parking spaces. There's a mix of landscaping as well and internal pathways to provide connectivity within the site and to the surrounding road network. There's a total of 17 ornamental trees and small ornamental trees proposed to be planted along the front corner and interior side yards, as well as shrubs and perennials. The proposed variances that we're seeking is a rear yard setback from 7.5 meters to 1.697. And that is shown by the yellow on the bottom of the site plan. That is to the concrete wall that is for the underground parking garage. So the setback is actually to the wall of the concrete ramp that goes down for the underground. And then we're also seeking interior side yard setbacks of 0.32 and 0.96 meters. It's the site kind of jogs a bit in the southeast corner. And so the setback requirements are a little bit complicated because you have to provide a certain distance for the first 20 meters. So we meet that, but towards the end, towards the back end of the property, we don't comply. We're also seeking a building height variance, so 3 variances to permit the 9-story building. I'll just go quickly through the elevations, please. Sorry, I can't see the timer, so I don't know how much time I have left. Thank you. Okay, so just quickly through these north elevation, the next slide, please. The south elevation, you can see here the property does slope a little bit to the rear, so the underground parking is designed to accommodate that slope to the rear and the ramp. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thank you. So from the official plan perspective, the site is designated in within the urban boundaries, part of the outer urban transect. It's designated as corridor Main Street, subject to the evolving neighborhood, as per Schedule B2 inner urban transect. A range of residential, non-residential forms and uses are permitted. The proposed 9-story apartment building was within the maximum permitted building height of 40 stories for lands designated corridor Main Street. It also conforms to the evolving neighborhood overlay policies, which supports development that permits and promotes intensification, new building forms and typologies. Next slide, please. The existing site is zoned Arterial Main Street, Subzone 10, Urban Exception 2199. Subzone 10 contains special setback and building height requirements. The exception is for an automobile dealership, which is not a use that is being proposed for the property. The proposed development complies with the majority of the applicable provisions of the AM10 Subzone 2199. Sorry, AM10 Exception Zone 2199. The proposed development has been designed to reflect a compatible built form that fits in with Montreal Road and Borthwick Avenue. Thank you. So as mentioned, the 5 variances shown on the next slide, please. So I'm just going to go to the 4 tests. Next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So the variances that we're seeking are minor. The interior side yard and rear yard setbacks and the increase to the building are required to accommodate the new building footprint and the 9-story building. Given the site's irregular and unique shape, it would provide housing units, including affordable housing units and commercial floor space. The maximum building heights are required to accommodate the proposed development, aims to provide residential intensification and commercial development in an urban area along Montreal Road, which is an arterial road as designated in the official plan. This area along Montreal Road is a prime location for this type of development, contributing to the overall mix of uses. Furthermore, there is a similar development with a higher building footprint to the north, which is a 14-story high-rise building. Next slide, please. The variances are desirable for the appropriate development of the land. Given the irregular shaped lot, we are meeting some variances to accommodate that. The interior side yard setbacks abut the adjacent property, and there's a detached garage that is in that corner where the interior side yard setbacks are being sought. And the next slide, please. The proposed development maintains the general intent and purpose of the zoning. The uses are permitted. There's just a few provisions that we are seeking for variance. And the mixed-use building is compatible with the surrounding and existing land use patterns and character of the neighborhood as intended by the zoning bylaw. And finally, the variances maintain the general intent and purpose of the official plan. As mentioned, the site is in the inner urban transect. Montreal Road is a corridor Main Street and in an evolving neighborhood overlay. The official plan permits building heights ranging up to 40 stories. The proposed development at 9 stories is within that permitted maximum height. And it also includes a mix of residential and commercial. Therefore, the proposed variances maintain the intent of the official plan by maintaining the provisions of the outer urban transect in the corridor Main Street designation. And it also achieves to support the city's housing goals of increasing housing options and maintaining the character of the surrounding neighborhoods in terms of land use and design. So in conclusion, in my professional opinion, the minor variances being sought today for this proposed development represents good planning, is appropriate, and is in the public interest. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to ask the panel if they have any questions. Ms. McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a concern about the reduced interior side yard down to 0.32. And normally a required side yard is to allow for fire access, maintenance of walls and that. I'm just not sure how that would be addressed with this design.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I'd like to ask if Mr. Lessier, our architect, could come in to describe the building design. Again, the overall, the intent was to propose a development while as much as keeping with the zoning bylaw provisions, but also providing for the number of units and achieving housing units. So, but Mr. Lessier, if he's can be promoted to a speaker and he can speak on the design.
Good afternoon, Mr. Member of the Committee, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the setback is smaller on that area. We because the land is chopped off, if I can say that. We provided a full wall all in masonry, so for fire, there's no problem with that because there's no openings and it's a combustible material. Now, the other thing for fire, the part of the building will be sprinklered. There's access from Bottrick and also access from the other side from Montreal Road through the courtyard. So it's a very small portion of the building that is not accessible, but there's no window, no openings. There's absolutely nothing. Does this answer your question? I can't hear. Oh, I can't hear anything. Can you hear me? Oh, it's fine. You can hear me? Okay, I can't hear Mrs. McLean. There's nothing changed. No. Did someone speak? I didn't touch it. No.
No,
Oh, I can hear now.
it's me. Eve, it's me. I don't hear anybody too.
Okay.
J'entends personne.
Sally cannot hear. Would you like me to leave and come back?
Eve, I hear you, Eve.
And I'm talking to Mr. Chair.
Hello?
Yeah, you know. Salim, I don't think they hear us.
Yeah,
Um. Mr. Chair, if you could raise your thumb, I'll leave and come back. Okay.
can you hear me? I don't hear you.
Okay, I'm back on. Up
Est-ce que vous avez le numéro du projet?
now. Can someone speak?
Est-ce que vous avez des copies de document?
Hello?
De Braun, pardon.
Are you able to call in, Mr. Mahi?
I can hear you. I'm talking now.
I hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you now too. Please
Yeah,
proceed
okay,
with your
good.
with presentation, sir. Mr. Balls, go ahead.
Okay, everyone can hear me now?
Yep,
We're
yep.
fine?
Fait que dans
Okay.
le fond, c'est comme sur le bâtiment, ce serait le code de couleur du client du revêtement, c'est ça?
So I'm set.
Please.
Okay,
Yeah, go.
so my questions, I'm trying to get a handle on some of the variances that are requested. Is there in your presentation anywhere that we could see where the areas of the lot to which each of these variances applies is shown? I thought I saw one
yes.
that flew by.
Yes, Mr. Chair, slide 3. Okay, thank you. So through you, Mr. Chair. So on the right-hand side of the building wall, there is a little yellow mark. That is the interior side yard setback of 0.32 meters. And then, thank you. And then the other interior side yard setback is just below at 0.98. Those are the two interior side yard setbacks that we're requesting. And then the rear yard setback that we're requesting of 1.697 meters is the one on the bottom, on the south part of the property. And that's from the property to the concrete wall for the underground parking.
Okay, so a clarification on that. So that concrete wall is below grade, above grade?
So I will ask Mr. Lucier to help respond to that. So this was back and forth with the city on this variance. So maybe Mr. Lucier, if you can just explain how that is intended, but my understanding is that it's a concrete wall and I'm not sure exactly what portion of it would how it's going to be constructed fully, but Mr. Lucier can ask him to explain the constructability of that.
And if it's below grade or near grade, I'd
Correct.
also like to know what the actual distance from the rear lot line to the back of the building is as well.
Okay.
Mr. Lucier?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The wall is 42 inches as per code, so people do not fall off. It's only 42 inches. It's concrete. As for the full distance from this building to this side, the building to the sight line, it is 7 point, sorry, it's 8 meters, 0.85.
So the The actual setback of the
Building.
of the building is 8 meters. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. To the property line.
okay. So it's only essentially at grade, a little bit above grade that you have reduced. Okay, thank you. So for, where are we
Oui,
now?
là, ça va confirmer.
So the 20-meter, so variance C then starts the ones that are measured from the line abutting R4, which is the rear lot line, correct?
Correct.
And so you're looking for an increase to height of 30.1 within 20 meters of the property line for variance C. So, oh, it keeps disappearing, but in that site plan, is that line off to the right, the 20-meter mark? Can we get that back again, please?
And through you, Mr. Chair, just want to clarify, there's the zoning bylaw in section 185 sub 10 J, and there's sub 2, sub 3, and sub 4. There are different height requirements. So 2 of them are maximum 15 meters. And 1 of them is at 20 meters. So I just want to provide that.
Yeah, I was just trying
clarification.
to work through where, because
Yeah.
you'll see where my difficulty comes in on variance E, where I could not find that area.
Okay,
But
so-
we'll work our way through. So the 20-meter line from the back to which the 15-meter height applies goes
Yes.
to where?
Okay, so through you, Mr. Chair, if I could just get a zoom in, and then Mr. Lussier, if you could assist on the dimensions there. Okay, so the 20, so it's the, hold on a second, the 20, can you zoom forward, like zoom to the top of the screen, please? Okay, so I'm having difficulty with my vision today. So there's the, so Mr. Lussier, are you able to assist on the dimensions here? Where the 20 meters for the building height, see there?
I no longer see Mr. Lucier.
So, okay, so first of all, I should have mentioned that there is a proposed right-of-way protection for Montreal Road of 37.5 meters. We have accommodated for that right-of-way protection, and so all setbacks are being measured from where that new front yard line would be. So,
But the ones we're talking about right now are from the rear, correct? Because it's from an R4. So the way these were.
oh, yes,
right?
yes, sorry.
So the
Yes.
only R4 that exists abutting your lot is the rear lot line.
Yes, sorry, I was looking at from the street
Yeah,
provision,
yeah.
sorry,
So where's the 20-meter mark
from the R4.
from the R4? And there's a mysterious line on the right there. And I was wondering if that's what it is.
Okay, is Mr. Lucier still on?
Yes, he is.
Below
Okay.
where it says wood something gate.
Okay, Mr. Lucier, are you able to help point out with the line from the abutting R4 zone, please?
Mr. Lucier, you're gonna
Yeah.
need to unmute yourself.
I'm here now.
Okay.
I couldn't talk. If I was talking, nobody could hear me. So the 20-meter, so if we look at the elevation, you could see what there's a building at 8 meter that stops up to a certain 6th floor, then it goes back another additional, and it's the exact line. I will try to give it to you. Gone for 6.
We put up an elevation drawing, please?
Yeah, the elevation would show it if you take the side one.
Does this work, Mr.
No,
Lucier?
next one, next slide, please.
The next one, a side elevation. There, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you see the line that's in the back is the 8-meter line, and then it goes back again. With the 2, there's some balconies at the top after 6th floor, it goes back again. And that distance would be, I'll tell you, I'm in an AutoCAD now. I will give you exactly the dimension.
But I'm finding it very difficult to assess these variances without being able to see on a site plan where, what part of the lot each variance applies to. which I was not able to find anywhere in here. And looking at it in elevation doesn't tell me where on the lot, how much of the building each of these applies to. Right, because these are variances essentially of elimination. For the first 20 meters, it's X, and then for 20 to 30 meters, it's a different height. Above 30 meters from the R4, it's 30 meters. And I'm the entire lot, as far as I could tell, from Geo Auto, is about 33 meters in depth, right?
Mhm.
And then there's a setback at the front. So I'm not sure that any of your building falls in the greater than 30 meter from the R4 portion of this. So there would be then, as I understand it, just the two variances, the one for up to 20 meters, and then the one from 20 to 30 meters, which would be 15 and 20 meter heights permitted, and you're asking for 15 to 30 and 30.1 and 20 to 30.1. And then there's this mysterious final variance E, which I'm trying to work up to figure out what part of the building that actually applies to. But it would be good to be able to see what C and D are. So I assume about 2/3 of the way through that lot, working forwards, right, which isn't marked anywhere.
Okay.
The variance, that's that variance from 15 to 30. So
Correct.
it's about 2/3 of the lot.
Mhm.
And then I think the entire rest of the building, all the way to its front facade, if I'm correct, is going to be subject to the second variance D, which goes to from 20 to 30.1, correct?
Correct.
All right. So then when we get to E, I don't know what that is. Where is this outside of 30 meters from, what did you ask for? From a property line abutting an R4 zone, which we just, I think, have established that no part of this building is in that. And then you're asking for something from 15 meters, but I don't know why would, it should be 30 meters, I think, to 30.1 if there were part of that building. So I'm not sure what variance E is, and it doesn't correspond to any of the text that I could find in the AM10 subzone in table 185, which gives these, which is, I think, where you took the text from.
Yes, so through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if the city planning staff can help, because we went
Maybe.
through with city staff on this
I'm happy to
a few
defer.
times. I'm
Who's the
just
planner
trying
on this?
to.
As you can tell, I spent some time on this application trying to figure out what
Yes, I
each
appreciate
variance was, and I was able to sort of work my way through the first four, but the fifth, I really couldn't find a piece of either the zoning bylaw or the building that it applied to.
Ms. Horn, can you give us a little hand?
Thank you, Mr. Poulet. My colleague Margot is online and she
She can
can
help?
help. She was on the
Okay.
pre-consultation.
Hello, Ms. Linker?
Hi, good afternoon. If staff would like, there is an alternative wording for this variance if the applicant would be willing to change the wording that would essentially capture all three variances into one. I can find that wording that was previously written, and that might clear up some of the confusion.
Sure, how will you get it to us?
I can read it out loud and submit it to the committee for the decision.
Okay, please go ahead.
Sorry, just 1 minute. I'm just looking for the alternative wording.
Okay.
Ms. O'Connell has her hand up.
Ms. O'Connell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just while Ms. Linker's doing that, I just was following along with Mr. Baltz's line of questioning, and the plan of survey indicates, just in terms of the lot dimension and the width, the depth back from Montreal Road, that the property is about 33 meters back from Montreal Road. So I'm anticipating, although I didn't follow along, and hopefully Ms. Linker can clarify, but it's the very last 3 meters of the property that exceeds the 30 meters back from Montreal Road.
Yeah, but my question was whether any part of the building, given the front setback, actually projects into past that 30 meters from the rear.
Above the height
Well,
restrictions.
you don't have to worry about height where there is no building. So if there was a 3-meter front yard setback, for example, and we're talking about 30 meters from the rear lot line on a 33-meter lot, then there would be no building that part of the bylaw applies to.
I see.
But since it wasn't marked off on any of the plans, I couldn't tell whether there is in fact any building that projects into the part that's more than 30 meters from the R4 or not. I guess it doesn't hurt to have that variance even if there is no building there, but I wanted to know. And then the final variance, I just couldn't work out what that was.
So why don't we let Ms. Linker
Yeah.
read into the record what she's proposing? And then we'll get to variance number 5 then. Ms. Linker?
Thank you. My apologies. I'm searching for the wording that was written up and I'm struggling to find that. However, I think on the top of my head, there could be a variance written similarly to permit a building height of 30.1 meters, whereas a maximum height of 15 meters is required. And then therefore that would capture the most restrictive height of being 15 meters and allow it to be up to 30 meters across the property, despite there being alternative maximums of 20 meters, as 15 is the most restrictive.
Mr. Baltz?
I'm fine as long as I can figure out what it is. I mean, the other possibility would be to change variance E, where it says, whereas the bylaw requires a maximum building height of 15 meters. I think that's wrong and it should have been 30 meters. And then it would vary from the actual bylaw. But if we can simplify it into one, I'm perfectly happy with that as well.
How does that meet your requirements, Ms. DeSanti?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we would be happy with that to clarify what the variances are with respect to the height and the setbacks.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Rice, do you have any questions for the, okay, Mr. Art, do you have any questions for the panel, for the applicant? Thank you. Now I'd like to ask our planning services if they've got any comments to make. Ms. Horn?
Thank you, Mr. Poulin. As mentioned in the report, staff have no concerns with the proposed variances and especially with the altered wording. I think that captures it with a bit more clarity. And staff believe that it's appropriate for the site.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask the panel, Ms. McLean, do you have any questions for planning? No. Mr. Baltz? Ms. Wright?
No.
Mr. Barrett?
Just a question to clarify the wording. Could you please repeat that one more time? Because I don't have it in front of me, so please.
Ms. Linker, could you read it again?
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I, again, don't have the specific wording in front of me that was previously written, but on the top of my mind, it was along the lines of to permit a maximum building height of 30.1 meters abutting an R4 zone, whereas the zoning bylaw permits a maximum of 15 meters abutting an R4 zone. And then therefore that would hopefully capture the most restrictive scenario.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Santi, you have the last word. I have to ask the public, is there some people, some residents that would like to make a presentation? Please come on down to the table at the front. Sure. You need to turn on your mic at the front. Okay, please state your name and your address, please.
Yes, my name is Stephen Pender. And my address for these purposes is 608 Cummings Avenue. Myself and my wife own the property, and it abuts directly east of the subject property we're talking about, 630 Montreal Road. And we have a number of concerns about the requested variances and the building overall. We did send in written comments, which I hope the committee had received. And we intended today to be able to provide our verbal comments to the committee.
Please go ahead. You have 5 minutes, sir.
So I'm Suzanne Pender, and the property that we own is the one that's got the little 3.32 meter offset variance that's being requested. What I'd like to speak about mostly from my perspective is the proposed height variance of 30.1 meters now for the entire portion of that property. So this would be 100% increase over the allowed limit of 15 meters for a property in that area. And as we've already mentioned, it's a very small piece of property. We do not consider this to be a minor variance in any manner. We recently noted that there was a new property at 1184 Cummings that has been approved and construction has started, and they did not seek a variance increase on height. So 20 meters, one level of parking underground, and it is infill. They took pieces of land. And that is on the south side of Montreal Road, which is the same area that this proposed building would be. The document that was part of the package to the committee, it's the covering letter, and it's got all the details from WSP in terms of the number of buildings in the area. So we were looking in particular at page 23. And there's a beautiful picture in there of the north side of Montreal Road. And it talks about all the buildings from 9 stories, 5 stories to 29 stories. But a picture is worth a lot because you can see that there's a lot of green space there. There's the cemetery, there's a pool, there's walking paths. There's lots of green space abutting a number of the buildings. There are parking lots, and there's a lot of different commercial use. So this is the north side of Montreal, which is a very mixed area. The south side is all entirely garden homes, semi-detached homes, a few low-rise apartment buildings that are 2 floors. So we find that we keep circling back to the same issue in that this property that's being proposed is just way too big for the size of the lot that exists. And it's in a regular shape, but that's a fact, but that does not necessarily mean that a variance should be approved. We did a little bit of digging around, trying to understand floor space indexes to try and see whether this was in fact maybe a bit too intense for this area. And we calculated using information in the planning documents, we came up with a ratio of 4.8. So nowhere in the city's documents is there a mention of a similar ratio except for a 3.5, a maximum of 3.5. So we're trying to understand how a building of this size could be put into such a small space without affecting the neighborhood, without affecting privacy issues, airflow, sunlight, all of those things.
Thank you. And I'd like to speak to the side yard setback issue and the minor variance that's being requested there. When you look at the magnitude of that variance, it's not minor in nature. In fact, we would say that it's not a variation when it's going from 7.5 meters to 0.32 meters, or in distances that I understand better, 24.7 feet to 1.04 feet. So in our view is that given that significant magnitude, it should give the committee serious concern about whether it's appropriate to grant that. But when you look at beyond simply the magnitude and the numbers, the importance of it. This is a large building that's going to be built right backing onto our single family, single story building. It's going to be, as proposed by the applicant, 9 stories in height, and have 2 levels of underground parking. The construction for that kind of project is being so close and not respecting the bylaws is going to cause irreparable damage to the building that we currently own. And we would submit to some of the other buildings that are very close by. They are small buildings, duplexes, triplexes, garden homes. They are nothing in close to size to what's being proposed. In addition, once the building is constructed at 9 stories, there are in the design balconies on 3 sides of the buildings, not on Montreal Road side, but 3 sides. Those balconies are going to create a privacy issue with respect to the properties. Is that a buzzer telling me that I'm out of time? Oh, thank you very much, Chip. The concern we have is that this is a project that is asking effectively for the bylaws to, in some instances, be ignored and or overridden. And I think that what's been noted is that a variance can be more than minor because it's too large or too important, as the court has held in the Vincent Divisional Court case. And our view is that this is one of these cases where this building is too large. We are for intensification. We support that. We've seen smart building in the area generally, but this is too large of a building for that particular land. And those are our comments. Thank you very much, committee.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. To either of the presenters, I guess the question is, we're looking at sort of the desirability and the magnitude of this, of the requested variances and the impact they would have on you. So what's allowed as of right, at least in the front of this lot, is a 6-story building. And then if they build it to the as of right, it would have to drop to a 4-story building further back. But going to 9 stories, what additional impact would that have on your property above a 4 to 6-story construction? And we can't consider things that could happen to your building during construction. It's not what we have in our power. So it would have to be the built building. Once it's built, what would that impact be?
Well, I do think that the building would tower over the neighboring buildings, including ours, as a 1-level building itself. Again, with balconies on most on 3 sides of it. It would effectively, because it's encroaching so much, it would limit the development opportunities for our property in particular. If that was ever going to be used to build new housing or other triplex or other housing that would be available. But again, with the variances being sought, and of course we defer to the committee's expertise in municipal law and planning. When so many variances and significant variances are being sought, something feels wrong as a property owner. When we buy a piece of property, it comes with the expectations that the property laws will be respected, that our property will be protected within what's predictable. And a variance, and I've looked at this in several of the different cases, variances can be granted, but these are of such significance, magnitude, that they seem to just simply override the bylaws. And quite frankly, there's lots of development going on rental properties in the area. Again, we've seen that down Cummings, several different projects, and there's no need to rush to overbuild on this particular property. They could be right-sized and adjusted so that there's not so much of an impact. Those are all the comments that I have.
Just, I want to confirm. So your property is which again?
It is 608 Cummings.
Okay, so
which
it abuts that rear. Your rear yard is their side yard setback, basically.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Plover.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to reiterate that, the Planning Act legislation is the legislation that is what we need to look at in terms of the four tests. The four tests are a collective. It's not just one number that is being proposed. The variances for the side yard again are for the irregular shaped lot. We've accounted for the right-of-way protection on Montreal Road. This proposed development does conform with the official plan and the intended vision for these lands that are designated corridor Main Street. We are proposing a building, or my client's proposing a building that is well below the threshold of the 40 stories that is currently permitted in the official plan or up to. And again, this is a mixed-use development with 15 to 25% affordable housing units. And it's my professional opinion that the variances requested do meet the four tests under the Planning Act. It's in the public interest. It's appropriate for and desirable for this area for future development. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
We're going to hear these two last applications together as they are interrelated. We're going to deal with item 8, 10 Chippewa Avenue, and item 9, 7 Starwood Road. I'm looking for Jennifer Murray. Are you available? Hello, Ms. Murray.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I think we understand pretty much the essence of this application. We've went through it a couple of times ago.
Yep.
So to that end, I just want to jump right into questions from the panel to you regarding this application. And Ms. McLean, just start us off. No questions? Okay, Mr. Barrett? Okay. Well, Mr. Barrett's looking for that. We'll go to Ms. Wright.
Hi, Ms. Murray. Would it be possible for you to just walk us through why you're doing the 2 driveways instead of what was shown in one of the applications as one?
Sure. Yeah. So, and I can talk about them simultaneously, realizing, of course, there's 2 separate applications here, and the circumstances are slightly different. The client had originally prepared an application with the 2 driveways on the outside of both buildings on each side. And in reviewing mainly the tree impacts, so we had the forester do the report and reviewed that with the city, I think back at the end of last year. And the suggestion was made to look at paired driveway in the center of the 2 properties, which we did go down that route. We had the architect revise all the drawings, and then we understood, I think there was implication of then needing to get a full severance on both of the properties. So we'd have to go through, the client would have had to go through a consent to sever to create those separate parcels, a joint use maintenance agreement, development agreement. And in talking to with our forester, we determined that if we were to put the 2 driveways, I guess, shifted them to the left instead of being on the outside, that would mitigate some of the tree impacts. And we had a follow-up call with forestry, and my understanding is forestry is supportive of the current approach. So that sort of summarizes a bit of the history. You'll notice also that the buildings are with the driveway to the left, we've got the commercial use to the east, and now we've got the driveway sort of to the west on the Starwood side. that sort of buffers a little bit from the existing property.
Okay, and then my second question, can you just walk me through, I can sort of visualize how I might be able to drive down into the back of my property, but I don't know how I'm gonna get out. It just seems really tight. Now, I'm not designing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say also, I mean, because we did have a lot of discussion with the city about the paving materials and the rear yard parking. I mean, the variance requested is for lot width and lot area. They're 50-foot by 100-foot lots. These are not small lots. The zoning in City View requires very large lots. So the minimum lot width and lot area is approximately, we're going to a 50-foot frontage. So there, I mean, there is ample space for parking in the back. I think the paving details may be worked out a little bit at building permit, whether there needs to be an agreement to be able to have more pavement. I don't think that's required to, I think it's been verified by the architect, basically, that cars can pull in at that orientation, and they each have their own driveway. So I think, I mean, it's a level of detail. I think we've shown that parking can absolutely be met on the site, even though it's not required. I encourage the client to show like they are proposing 3 units in the detached dwellings. I encourage them to be very transparent and very clear right from the beginning of what they were proposing and the parking required, because that would save them discussion at the building permit phase. But we are not asking for any variances related to any of the setbacks. It's just minimum lot width.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, can you explain the stormwater management brief, which highlights that permeable surfaces for parking will be included? Is that the decision you've made or the applicant has made?
Yeah, so there's 2 discussions related to permeable pavement. So an agreement, I guess, or commitment was made to do permeable paving in the rear yard, and that was through the tree discussion. There was discussed also looking at certain gravel type products. I mean, I think they were getting into a level of detail that the developer hasn't designed the detailed design yet. They're waiting to see if they're going to get their approval first. So related to the trees, there was discussion about doing gravel in the rear yard. And then through the city proposed condition, I guess when we were first going to come to committee, it was agreed that the stormwater brief would be advanced. Like, they went ahead and finalized the brief. It was sent to the city infrastructure engineer who's reviewed it. They have asked for a little bit more detail in terms of whether an underground storage is being proposed or on-site ditching. I mean, I think it starts to get into a high level of detail for a lot width and lot area variance, but the client has basically provided the stormwater briefs to the city. They reviewed them. And what they are proposing is that the details of how that on-site retention translates into the sort of final grading plan should be done at building permit. That's kind of what's being proposed right now. So my understanding is the approach would be to condition the variance to that engineering report, so that when the building permit is issued, they're tied to meeting the infiltration requirements on that lot. So that could be through permeable paving. It could be the whole driveway. It could be a rear yard infiltration area. It could be a below ground pipe. We've asked to have the flexibility to work that out into the detailed design.
So just to clarify that, so that decision it's not made yet. It will be reviewed and done at a later time, correct?
Yeah, the client had committed to doing the parking itself as gravel. I mean, I don't know that really comes through in the conditions, or whether I don't know how that gets tied in, because I don't think the plans are tied to the approval, but they're willing to commit to that as part of this process, to do the rear yard parking as gravel.
Yes, I'm just discussing the stormwater management brief that was your consultant has prepared.
Right.
Thank you.
So they're not, I think it's premature to commit to how they're going to create that infiltration, because it would require a higher level of detail to the drawings than where they're at.
Thank you. Ms. McLean?
No, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Baltz?
We're going to hear from comments from planning after this, so I'll wait for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'd like to hear from planning. And Ms. Kachin, are you? Hi.
Right
You're here
there.
today. That's great.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so yes, so been a long one with this one. We're finally here talking about it and staff are happy to say we have no concerns. We've worked really hard with the applicant trying to come up with a solution and we're satisfied that based on the brief that we provided, I don't want to say preliminary, but given that we are confident that they're showing, like they're saying it's possible. And so now we're confident that, or we're comfortable proceeding with having no concerns with their approval. And then we can do the deep dive in once they have some confidence in terms of that they can go through with this. And that's why we're requesting that the approval be tied to the brief. And I know that there was just discussion about it being tied to building permit, but either way, like we want to see that updated stormwater management brief before the minor variance is finalized. And that's the point of doing this and why we've kind of requested a unique tying of the approval to the brief itself, to the preliminary brief, I would say. And then you see, we've also requested a condition of the stormwater management plan, which is the visual to accompany that. So, but once those are satisfied, I think that it's a solution that we're looking towards when we're recognizing that there are lots in city view with the underlying plan of subdivision and how do we address stormwater. So may change in the future our approach, but you know, this is our attempt to work with the applicant who's been quite receptive to providing us the information we need to make an assessment. Happy to answer your question.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask the panel, Mr. Baltz, do you have any questions for planning?
Yeah, so when this was adjourned on June 4th, Forestry still had significant concerns on both of these. So have those been resolved? I don't know if we need someone from Forestry to comment or if you're prepared.
I think that's fair to say that so the concerns have generally been addressed. I think it's more so Forestry wants to note that the city likes to see maybe a different approach to when there's so much paved services, but also recognizing, you know, this is what's permitted by the zoning. We have more limited way to influence that. So overall, Forestry is satisfied with what's been done, and those comments are just to illustrate, you know, here's our other things that we're thinking about, comments. Don't want to just say, hey, this is okay. We always want to see this because we have other policies that contribute to tree canopy cover and soft landscaping that we just want to make sure are noted for your information.
So yeah, I guess I'd want to, if with your permission, Mr. Chair. So this has come up in other contexts, comments that are provided from planning or forestry, which appear to be for our information. But we need to make a decision. So what weight are we to give? Would the city like us to give comments that are submitted that are like these, which are telling us that there is something undesirable happening, but not to the level where the city is opposing it in any way?
Am I allowed to respond to the question? Because we did make a change to the.
Please go ahead. Sorry if you-
Yeah, I'm just,
But then I'd like
I'm
to
trying
hear
to remember.
planning again.
We'll come back
Yeah,
to
sorry, I'm trying.
Ms. Kachin in just a minute. Please go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember the chronology myself because I know we adjourned last time because I had a personal conflict. I had to attend my children's graduation, but prior to that, which was early June, between that meeting and the subsequent meeting, we did meet with Forestry and we did move some of the trees which were shown as being on private property. We moved them into the right of way, and that was one of the concerns. And I think it was just an oversight in, you know, there was no objection to providing them as street trees, which would be in the city right of way, and that was one of the changes that was made. One of the two files, and I'd have to refer to them to get them right. One of them has no concerns from Forestry, because there was an adjustment made to the parking also to not have any impacts on trees. The other one did have some concern noted of the number of trees, but that they recognize the proposed mitigation. I mean, this is my recollection. I'm not the forestry person, but that the proposed mitigation was sort of, you know, in met the requirements, so that there are trees being removed mostly because of the driveway location, but that's required, you know, to allow for 3 dwelling units on these sites. So we did propose, or the applicant proposed, more planting, and it was moved to show, I think, even maybe different tree species, or there was a slight change made to the TIR and it was recirculated to Forestry.
Ms. Kachin,
From my recollection.
Or you could help us here too, or can you do it?
Yeah, I guess I'll defer to Ms. Young, who's on the line, and perhaps you can provide a bit more.
Thank you. Ms. Young?
Hi, thank you for the question. I'm just reviewing these. yeah, I think really my comments were for context, to show that, you know, there could have been solutions to design around and retain some of the existing trees, if there wasn't a central driveway. That was my main concern, on 7 Starwood, not on 10 Chippewa. But really, as has been described here, we have met, and it sounds like there aren't really that many alternatives here. So, given the situation, forestry has no further concerns with the plans as they are.
That answer your question, Mr. Bolts?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now I'd like to move on to the city. Sorry, not the city, the community association, which has registered to speak. I'm looking for Nancy Wilson and Jill Prott.
Hi, this is Nancy Wilson. Jill's going to start if she's there.
Ms. Prott, are you there?
Yes, she is online.
Thank you. Please go ahead, Ms. Prott.
Oh my gosh, okay, right here. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Committee. These two applications are minor variance applications, and in order to be approved by the Committee of Adjustments, all of the 4 tests must be met. The City View Ryan Farm Community Association opposes any application that doesn't meet the requirements of the existing bylaw. The requested variances to facilitate the development of these new detached dwellings on undersized lots doesn't meet the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. Also, this proposal is not desirable for the appropriate development or use of the land, building, or structure. This development has 4 parking spaces proposed for the rear yard, yet the other 1,500 plus homes in City View have all been constructed with driveways in the front of their properties. This doesn't fit with the existing streetscape or the character of the neighborhood, and it will close to triple the amount of hard surfaces in a neighborhood that has been documented to have flooding issues and no storm sewers. With these back-to-back developments, permeable areas will be significantly reduced, and this is going to compound the drainage and flooding issues in City View. The planner's report has indicated the City View neighborhood has known ditch drainage issues. The proposed development would result in significant increases in lot coverage with the potential to worsen the existing situation if no additional stormwater management measures are pursued. Therefore, it is requested that this minor variance approval be subject to storm management conditions to address on-site stormwater management. And under additional comments, it is also noted the surface stormwater runoff, including the roof runoff, must be self-contained and directed to the city right-of-way, not onto abutting private properties. I'd like to say that this surely is the case with any development. What we would like to know is what special stormwater management conditions are being applied in these cases. We heard some discussion on this, but we believe that this is crucial to the approval of this application. It's not something that can be discussed with the builders down the line and whether they should have gravel or whatever. How will the stormwater runoff be self-contained? Is this through a reservoir or piping? Is it going to be under the building or somewhere else in the property? Will it be held for slow relief? And what does the city right-of-way mean? Does this mean that they just need to put their stormwater into the ditch? Gravel paving does not compare to natural soil, green spaces, and trees that absorb natural moisture. Enough said about that, but we also want to speak about this rear yard parking. This city recently passed a new bylaw to meet Bill 23 provisions. This new bylaw claims that no more than 70% of the rear yard may be occupied by parking spaces and driveways and aisles. This rear yard parking is a choice and it's not mandated. This property is large enough to allow front parking and outdoor rear yard amenity space for its residents. Moving this parking to the front with 2 double driveways has many advantages for the applicant. It will allow the same amount of parking. It would fit with all the other 1,500 plus homes in City View that have driveways in the front of their properties. It will greatly reduce the amounts of impermeable surfaces and the heat island effect of this commercial Clyde Melville Road area. It allow for better snow removal and snow storage, the enjoyment of residents and any children living here. It will provide a visual interaction with other neighbors and residents by having activity at the front of the house, such as parking and snow clearing. There'll be 2 driveways to the back. Having 2 driveways to the back and the parking surface almost triples the amount of impermeable space. It will also help in the retention of backyard trees and provide space for additional planting. And we'd like to note that the applicant has included several examples of rear yard parking in City View. This is wrong. City View doesn't have any rear yard parking. These examples are driveways, usually single width, on large properties leading to single car enclosed garages, not into a large open parking area. These example houses were built many years ago and still have very large backyards and with amenity space and mature trees, unlike this proposal. There's been much intensification here for many years with frontages and lot areas below that required in our R1FF zoning bylaws, but they all have driveways in the front. This is the norm here. We're asking this developer to revise his plans to allow the 4 rear parking spaces to be relocated to double driveways in the front yards for everyone's benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Prott. I'd like to turn now to Ms. Wilson. Are you available, Ms. Wilson?
I am. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'll start by saying the planner notes that the City View neighborhood has no ditch drainage problems. The proposed rear yard parking of this address will result in the majority of each lot being paved and greatly reduce permeable portion of the site for stormwater infiltration and the required planting of 7 compensation trees. It's strongly recommended to consider other parking options, which Jill has already talked to. As mentioned before, all 4 tests must be met for approval. The proposed development would result in significant increases in lot coverage with the potential of worsening the existing situation if no stormwater management measures are pursued. City View has no stormwater sewers and a failing rural ditch system that's caused many houses to flood. Allowing for 2 separate driveways into the rear parking space worsens the natural drainage. I won't go over all of this because this was for 7 Starwood that I was reading. City View also lacks parkland, the lowest in Ottawa. Because of our large lots, we are overlooked for any open space or any community or recreational facilities. We are surrounded by major roads, commercial parking lots, and the acres of hard parking space at Algonquin College, which has created a heat island here. Most of City View enjoys its amenity spaces in their backyards. This is why we moved here. We are void of parkland and treasure our limited green space. We've been intensifying here for many years with frontages and lot areas well below that required in our R1FF zoning bylaws. Based on variance applications alone, there have been over 121 new builds in the last 6 years and nearly 200 in the past decade. All of these new builds have double driveways in their front yards. This has enabled these new builds to fit into our area and to complement the other 1,500 houses here, and that all have driveways in the front. This application is not in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The applicant claims that there is no secondary plan for this area. This is not entirely true. This secondary plan was rescinded with the passing of the new official plan and replaced with Volume 2C Area Specific Policy Number 45 for Maryville Road, which still holds weight in law. This property and the other property heard today at 10 Chippewa and 7 Starwood both abut the commercial development on Clyde and Maryville. If these properties are allowed to be developed as proposed, any future opportunities to meet the requirements under the official plan will be lost, and I'll read those to you in a minute. The city should ensure sufficient space is protected for planned multi-use pathways and to ensure the existing pathways south of Starwood and north of Chippewa are connected. By allowing these new developments, the city's only opportunity to make these connections will be lost forever. I don't know if the picture can be brought up that has the streets on it. I think I sent it in. And maybe you've seen it, but there's a bike. I'm just going to read what the official plan says. So under volume 2C, area specific policy for Maryville Road, number 45, it's there, that's it. The efficient and safe connection shall be provided between the adjacent neighborhoods in the Maryville-Clyde 7th Main Street corridor. They shall include new east-west multi-use pathways and similar forms of pedestrian connections where there are opportunities to introduce pedestrian and cycling shortcuts, and a well-landscaped, comfortable, and attractive north-south pedestrian pathway and cycle route east and west of Maryville Road. So on both sides of Maryville Road, there's supposed to be a north-south pedestrian pathway. You can see the blue lines. That's where there is already the north-south pedestrian pathway. So it comes down and it's all connected except for those two houses there on the edge of the commercial district and 10 Chippewa and 7 Starwood. So if the bill goes through as it is, that will be lost forever. So there'll be no way to connect that pathway. So the direct contradictions to volume 2C of the area specific policy number 45 Maryville Road demonstrates that this development proposal is not in conformance with the city's official plan. Therefore, this application is also not desirable for the appropriate use of the land. The proposed variants are not minor in nature. The applicant claims that the impact of the proposal on the lotting fabric of the neighborhood is minimal and in keeping with many examples throughout the area. The size and style of housing is very similar to many examples on Starwood and Chippewa existing today. This is not entirely true. Although other infills have been constructed on reduced lot widths, none have rear yard parking. Also, there are no buildings with 3 units in R1 FF zoning in City View. A recent construction on Granton and 3 units in each half of duplexes required a zoning amendment. These duplexes have front yard parking with rear yard amenity space. For the above reasons, all of the 4 tests have not been met and the application should be denied. And we'd also like to confirm that cash in lieu has been collected on these properties. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Now I'd like to ask the panel if they have any questions for our 2 presenters. Ms. McLean? Mr. Baltz?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. To either of the presenters, I guess, or it doesn't matter. The multi-use pathway question, that connection, why would that connection not be made through the rear of that very large commercial property that's shown? It was in the right of the image that was presented.
I think so far where it comes down has always been along the roadway that's in between. And that's why it stops the house there. So it's not in the commercial area in any of the other spots. It always ran down along the edge of the houses. So I'm not sure. Jill, do you have anything to say about that?
Also, it's at the rear of those places all have parking.
Yeah, but the houses have garages. In many other areas, when multi-use pathways have been taken or the land has been taken, the easements have been established. It's often been along large developments that are being proposed or redevelopments, which would seem, even from the alignment there, to more reasonably go through the rear of those large commercial properties.
I think if you probably don't know the history of City View, but all of those streets used to come out onto Clyde Avenue, and they've closed some of them off, so they're like a U horseshoe at the end, and that's the end of those streets is where they've made these multi-use pathways along there. So none of them run in the commercial. You can see in the picture that none of them run along in the commercial area, but they run along between the houses and the commercial, and that's usually because there's that little road that goes through there. They don't call it a road, but the little pathway that goes along there. But they didn't close off Starwood. They did close off Chippewa, so Chippewa's got part of it, but it doesn't come between Chippewa and Starwood. So I'm not sure how that would work, but if something's not done, then that's lost forever. And like Jill said, there's all parking lots in the back of the other commercial areas.
It's the Bleecker Mall, so it has actually a high rise. It has legal offices and a number of other things there. So they need the parking on the rear. There's a whole row of parking on the rear of that building.
Right. Okay. We won't debate that here, but I was just getting to the idea that's lost forever. I think there is certainly a future opportunity to take a multi-use pathways width of land from such a large lot, especially if it gets redeveloped in the future. But anyway, it's not a major consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wright, do you have any questions?
No, not anymore.
Mr. Barrett, do you have any questions?
Yes, through to you to staff. Was front yard parking discussed with the applicant during your consultation period?
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. So I wasn't part of the original pre-consultations where going back and forth about the driveway location, but my understanding that it was always rear yard parking that was discussed. And from staff's perspective, until the new zoning bylaw changes, it is preferable to not have parking that's oriented towards the street. So typically when we see proposals like this, where it's proposing rear yard parking, that's why we don't have concerns, because it is generally ideal. So, and this wouldn't be a case, I know if I got this proposal today, I wouldn't be likely suggesting, typically wouldn't be pushing hard against rear yard parking again. Obviously, there are circumstances like with all the trees where perhaps front yard parking is ideal, but if the applicant is looking towards a non-automobile oriented situation, it's difficult for us to have strong concerns about that.
And the second part of the question is with regards to the stormwater management brief, will the City View Community Association be briefed on that as well once it's been discussed with the applicant? So there's been discussion on what type of stormwater relief is going to be used. Is that going to be something that will be forwarded to the community?
Typically, that's not, just like any documents used to clear conditions for Committee of Adjustment approvals, this isn't information the city usually is distributing. We definitely encourage that the applicant, if they would like to share that with the community association, I think that would be more appropriate.
Ms. Murray, can you make that commitment to City View? Provide them with the stormwater management brief?
I mean, I'll have to check with the owner of the information, but I suppose so. I mean, all it shows is quantifying from an engineering perspective, and it might be helpful for the community association to understand that basically the commitment that's being made is similar to, I guess, what's under the new zoning bylaw, which is the developer has to commit to no more offsite stormwater leaving the site after the development than that leaves the site currently at the sort of peak event. So that's what the stormwater brief says. I'm happy to share that with them. I'm not sure it's going to provide, well, I'm happy to ask the owner of the information if they're willing to share with them. I don't see any reason why not. I'm not sure it's going to provide any new information to them. Basically, the commitment is within the report that anybody who develops that property will be tied to the variance, that they have to retain a certain amount of rainwater on site before it basically goes into the ditch. And I will mention that there is a stormwater system in front of both of these properties. It's a rural roadside ditch. I'm aware that there are no below ground sewers in City View, and that's a decision that this, the city of Ottawa over the fullness of time, I guess we'll have to decide if they upgrade the roads, if they put in a storm sewer system, but there is a stormwater system in City View. It's rural roadside ditches, and they're very pronounced in front of both of these properties. So
Perfect. Thanks for that commitment to take it to your owners. So I'd now like to go to Ms. Murray, and if you would like to give us your final word on this presentation, that would be appreciated.
I guess to the commit, I don't know if you want me to respond to the community association comments. I would just say, I think that City View certainly has undergone a lot of changes and is going to continue to. The builder for these two projects actually grew up in City View and is very much committed to the community. They've met with the councilor. I'm aware, I guess they have not met with the community association. I think bringing in new forms of housing, more affordable for rent housing is really important in a lot of communities, but I realize it can cause anxiety. There is no variance being sought related to the parking whatsoever. There's no variance being sought related to anything to do with the paving. So there is a result of having a new dwelling unit, and that does trigger, I guess, more requirement for parking. So we do understand the need to address that through this application, but I just wanted to remind of that. So there is a lot coverage maximum percentage in this community, and we're not seeking any variance to that maximum coverage. There's a lot of examples today of double wide garages and severances that have been granted to build 2 large single family homes on 50-foot lots with double garages with double driveways. And I'm not sure that that's, you know, better or preferable from a community perspective to having some amount of rear yard parking. I think the developer, as the zoning bylaw evolves, for sure they would continue to look at whether front yard parking is better. It's certainly a lot cheaper to build. Not sure. I know the city has completely shifted their perspective on this. You know, a year ago, if we were coming to the committee proposing front yard parking, I think staff would certainly not be supporting that. But we'll see how that continues to evolve. So, I mean, I think that's all I have to say. I think this is a very appropriate, I can't think of a more appropriate location in City View for this type of housing, right next to an existing commercial site, right next to parking. We've got a vacant lot to the side of the Chippewa site, and on Starwood, they're actually fronting across to another commercial and a right of way. So, and these two projects are backing onto each other. So I think in terms of a appropriate development for the lot and the variances being minor, I mean, I think it certainly helps with the location of these two particular lots within the neighborhood also. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to ask the panel if they would like to reserve on this application. All those in favor, please raise your hands. So we're going to reserve on this application. You'll receive our decision in writing in the next 10 days. Ms. Murray, thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe that ends our hearing for today. Thank you everyone for your help, and look forward to seeing you.